think back to my early 30s, 15 years ago, when I went to New Zealand for the first time. And I was a traveler alone, a woman alone, and the best companion you can have is your journal, right? To write. So I was sitting in this cafe called the Fat Dog Cafe, writing and drinking a beer, being the only customer until a man entered. And our eyes met briefly. We smiled, and he walked to the table, ordering a pot of tea and his regular meal. Well, in the meantime, I went back to my writing, but actually I was hiding a smile behind my hair. I had long red hair at the time. And why was I smiling? Because my brain was really quick. 15 years older, friendly, not someone to sleep with. Okay. I finished my beer, ready to go. My hostel was next door, and I was looking forward for a quiet night with a book. And I remember standing at the door, my hand on the door handle, but the next thing I remember is that I stand at this table, and I hear myself say, "Do you mind if I share a cup of tea with you?" "Yes," he said. And he got up, fetched another cup, and within minutes we were talking like old friends. And he told me about his wooden house that he built himself in a magical place. He had his own patch of forest. Forest on one side, the house, and a green valley on the other side. And how he lived there with 3 housemates, 2 women, 1 man. And there was enough space, and it was good. And when we finished our tea, he said, "Why don't you join me for a night, quiet night in the forest, instead of a noisy night in the hostel?" And I was curious. I was really curious. So we walked to his car, where he would wait for me to pick up some stuff in the hostel. And just when I turned around, he said, "Well, by the way, my housemates are all on holiday." There I was. Going to the hostel, sitting on the lower one of the bunk bed, thinking that I was crazy. Could I trust him? Could I trust his friendly face? And I got out my cell phone and started to text my best friend in the Netherlands. Wouldn't help, right? She would be sleeping on the other side of the planet. And what would you do, right, if your best friend, a girl, "Hey, I just met this guy, has his own place in the forest, alone. Do you think it's a good idea?" So no, I just deleted it. And I sat on the bed for quite a while, and I don't know why, but I went. And he said that he had almost left because I took quite a while, and he thought I'd changed my mind. I said, "Nah, I didn't." I didn't. But on the way there, I was watching everything. We went left, right, straight ahead. But of course, after 5 minutes, I was lost. I had no idea where we were, but I was alert the whole time. And 20 minutes on a paved road, onto a dirt road, and he stopped in front of a narrow track going down into a pitch dark, black forest. He turned on his headlights and he said, "Welcome to Paradise Valley." But from the dark, in these headlights, what appeared was like a painting. And those of you who have ever been in a New Zealand forest, the ferns are not like this. They grow like this, with fern fronds as big as fists. And it was all bathing in this yellow light. So I literally thought, if he wants to kill me tonight, at least I have enjoyed this breathtakingly beautiful, magical forest. We got to his house, we drank cups of tea, we talked, and I sat on my hands. I'm usually very touching, easily. when we talk and I like someone, but I was really scared to evoke anything. And it was also the case when I slept in the fluffy sleeping bag on a mattress and on the floor in the guest room. I heard all the sounds in the night. Everything. The wooden planks the house was built of, the animals in the forest. But I must have fallen asleep because I was awoken by something soft and warm creeping down into my sleeping bag. It was a cat. And next to me on the floor, a big mug of steaming hot black tea with milk, the way they drink it in New Zealand and in England. And at breakfast he asked me, would you like to stay another night or shall I bring you back to the hostel? I asked him to bring me back to the hostel. And we said goodbye on the pavement. And when his car drove off, I wondered. I really wondered and asked myself, did I just save my skin? Or did I miss out on something really beautiful? And Beauty was standing at the window looking out. Her hands were raw and red. She had been scrubbing the cottage from floor to ceiling. It had never been this clean. Beauty's father was coming home today. He had been away for so long. And there was a big pot of lamb stew with vegetables, creamy, simmering on the stove. And the smell was filling the whole cottage. He loved that dish, and he would be hungry. Finally, he came and she rushed out of the cottage. Father, Father, you're back! And he jumped off the horse, embraced her tightly, holding one rose. And he wolfed down the stew. And he ate and he ate. And finally she got the chance to ask him about his business trip. He said, well, business was a failure. But never you mind. I'm happy to be home. But he said, I may be spoiling the evening, but I need to go to sleep early. My bones hurt a bit. It must be the long ride. And in the morning, Beauty was awoken by a scream. It was her father screaming for her. And she rushed to his room and he was complaining about his bones hurting so badly. He was sweating, shaking, and she called for a doctor. But, it was a good one, but he didn't find anything. He said, I don't know. I don't know what it is. And I'm really sorry to say, but you better stay by his side because I'm not sure if he will live to see the morning. And his temperature rose and rose and rose in the night. And in the early morning, daughter, I know. What, Father? I know. And in his delirium, he told her the story of his journey back, that he got lost in a blizzard and lost in an unknown forest where he rode for hours and hours until he came to a castle. A garden of a castle and a blooming, blossoming red rose to one of the walls. And he remembered his daughter and how she loved roses. And he got his horse close and picked one rose. But when he turned, a rose thorn stung his horse. The horse reared. He fell with his face down in the cold mud. And when he clambered up, there was this deep, big, towering shadow. Beast-like. And then a voice. You thief! You slime! You steal one of my roses? Here's the price. You bring me the first person you set your eyes on once you get home. That is mine. And if you do not do as I say, you will die. You were the first one, Beauty. My everything. I didn't think. Beauty knew that she had to go. There was no time to lose, so she saddled her horse and went off to the unknown forest, to an unknown castle. to a beast. And in the villages that she passed, she asked for directions to this castle. And people shook their head, they flinched, they made a cross. Don't go there. Don't go there. There is an ugly beast living there. And he ate the last queen who lived there, and he still uses her bones as toothpicks. We have seen it walking on the battlements, and it's huge. It has claws, and his face is surrounded by giant black manes. No one has ever come back from that place. And with every warning, Beauty felt an urge to turn her horse. But then she thought about her father, shaking, dying. And she rode on and on until she came to this huge castle. It was gloomy and dark. The only color was a rose climbing up one wall, and it was glistening in the moonlight. The battlements were high, towering over. She got off her horse, went to the door, and the door knocker was heavy when she pulled it up and let it fall. No one came. She pushed the door, entered the hallway. There was one candle, leaves on the floor, cobwebs from the ceiling, and it was damp, as if no fire had been lit there for years. Hello? Hello? Nothing. She took one little step, and then another, and a second candle lit on the wall, and a third. And step by step, candle by candle, she followed the path through the hallway, up the stairs, until she came to a door that was open a bit, and a warm light came into the corridor. It was a guest room, with a bed, books on the wall, a cupboard filled with dresses cut to her shape, satin walls, and a huge oval mirror with a silver ornamented frame. And in this mirror she saw her own face, pale and tense. Then, through her own reflection, she saw the image of her father. He was sitting up in bed, eating little spoonfuls of stew. She let herself fall on the bed. It was soft, and the duvet was embroidered with hundreds of tiny red roses. And exhausted, she fell asleep, to be awoken the next morning by the smell of breakfast. And all of us here would have loved it. You know, the smell of bacon, eggs, fresh coffee, toast. She was not hungry. She looked into the corridor. There was no one there. Maybe just a bit of coffee, she thought. And she followed the smell down to the kitchen, where the table was set for one, and everything was there. It was plenty. It was a lot. And she did take one little sip of coffee, tried a bit of toast, put it back. The beast was standing in front of her. It was a figure clad in black, from its boots, cloak, gloves, a hood, throwing a dark shadow on its face, and what she could see of the face was hidden behind layers and layers of black bandage. Do you come consenting? Then eat. And turned around and left. In the following weeks, she did not see the beast for one moment, but she did sense a presence. She was startled by sounds, felt eyes poking in her back, but every time she turned around, nothing. maybe a shadow just going around the corner. But she did explore the castle, room by room, and found sitting rooms, guest rooms, a giant dining hall, and a library filled with thousands and thousands of books. And of course there were 3 meals on the table, always fresh, plenty, tasty, and most of all, the image of a father. Every night before she went to sleep, she had a look, and he was sound asleep or working in the garden. One day when she was in the garden for the first time, she was looking around when suddenly a dark cloud came across the sun and it turned chilly in seconds. And she turned around, the beast, blocking her path. He had a blue cloak in its hands, saying, "Take it, you'll catch a cold." And she took it, draped it over her shoulders, while she looked at where she expected a face, but it was only blackness. "Come with me." And he took her to the far end corner of the garden, went under a stone arch, and Beauty found herself in a rose garden, surrounded by walls. Many, I think 1,000 tiny rose bushes were planted in the shape of a spiral. In all colors, they were white, red, yellow, orange. "Did you make this?" Beauty asked the beast. "I had to dig deep. It took me years. Roses are beautiful to look at, but their thorns, they rip your flesh. And you can never mind, forget it." And he turned around and left Beauty in the garden. Now I had a lover once who I saw twice a week for 2 hours. He was married. And we had blissful hours, I can tell. For 2 hours a week or twice we had that. It was in my house. It was a good time in my life to do this. And he made me feel like a natural woman. I enjoyed it very, very much. And I looked forward to these moments. But of course he had to leave all the time. Go back home. And he told me of this image on his wall above his king-size bed of a rose. And there are enough Dutchies here who know the IKEA bestseller of this rose. 55 fucking euros including the frame. It was on his wall and I never saw it. But what he said to me was, "Esther, sorry, I have to leave again. But remember, every night before I go to sleep, I look at a rose and think of you." Pretty ugly, huh? And then one night, I got a text. Because sometimes we had stolen moments in the night when he walked his dog and he called me. And it was not a fat dog actually. But anyways, he texted, "I hope you're still awake. Call me, it's urgent." And of course I did. "Hey sweetie, how are you? What's up?" The voice of a woman. "You bitch! Why the fuck do you do this to me? Why do you sleep with my husband, and why does a woman do this to another woman?" In the next few days, Beauty felt quite alone in the castle. She did not even feel the lurking presence of the beast. But as quickly as he had disappeared, he stood there, the end of her dinner, with the blue cloak in its hands. "Follow me." And he led her up a spiral staircase, up and up. The beast urged her on, and to open a door, and she felt the cold air on her cheeks. They were on the battlements. Move. Forward. And the battlements were high, steep on either side, rocks below. Move. And Beauty walked step by step by step until she could go no further. She was on the edge. And then she saw the entire garden in the moonlight, bathing in the moonlight. It was like a painting with the path and the flower beds and the spiral-shaped rose garden. It was magical. This is beautiful. And she turned to the beast, saw the blackness of the face. Show me what's behind your mask. Do you really want to know? The beast removed the dark black hood and started to peel off the layers of bandage one by one. There are many tales about these two in the castle. Some tell about a beauty and a beast who eat and feast. Some tell about two beasts who dig in the soil with their claws. And there are some who tell about two beauties who can be seen walking on the battlements under the waning moonlight. The next day, or that day, in the hostel, I couldn't get him out of my head, nor his magical place in the forest. But let's sleep on it for a night, I thought. I'm a sensible woman, and I slept on it, but it didn't help. The pull was strong. So I gathered my courage and went back to the Fat Dog Cafe late afternoon. And sure enough, he was there sitting at his own table, a meal in front of him, and a bottle of wine. And without hesitation, I walked to his table, asked him, "May I join you for a glass of wine?" "Yes." And he fetched me a glass and a fork. And within seconds, we were talking about life and love. And again, he asked me, "Would you like a quiet night in the forest instead of a noisy hostel?" So we drove. We drove out of town, the paved road, the dirt road. And before we went down a narrow track, turned on his headlights of the car, and this time he said, "Welcome back to Paradise Valley." This time I did not hide my smile. This time I did not sleep in the fluffy sleeping bag on the mattress in the guest room. And when a soft and warm touch crawled down my body, it was not a cat.